The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, Tech Bites is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Well, Rob Grimes with Tech Bites, and today we're going to be highlighting another one of those springtime industry conferences that I always enjoy going to every year, and also with one of my favorite conversation people at a reception or anywhere, Jared Pfeifer, who is the publisher of Food on Demand. So welcome to Tech Bites.
Thanks, Rob. Glad to be here.
So this is sort of odd because we have conversations all the time, and Food on Demand has really grown, and it's really you're at the helm of it. So, I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what Food on Demand is, either as a publication or as a conference, even though I think people get the idea, but a lot of people are using that terminology today, take away home foods and everything. So why don't we start with that?
I'd love to. And yes, you are correct. I think you and I have been connecting at conferences probably since around 2018 or so. And our conferences as well as others. But Food on Demand, we are a division of Franchise Times Corporation. So Franchise Times is our parent company. We also own and operate the Restaurant Finance and Development Conference. And back in 2016, 2017, we were creating delivery content for all of our brands as that segment of the market was rapidly expanding and growing. And as a group, we kind of thought, maybe there's something to this space. Maybe we'll try to create an area that we can serve that market. And so Food on Demand was born really to help educate as it continued to grow. And at the time, we were sending out newsletters whenever we had enough content to do so, and that became more and more frequent. So we created the the Food on Demand conference in 2018 was our first.
Chicago, I think it was, right?
First conference was Dallas in 18, and then Chicago in 19. Yep.
And who would have predicted, by the way, you were ahead of your time, because I suspect at the time when you created, people were complaining about delivery prices and is this going to be this and that and who controls it? And then COVID hits and it becomes a whole revenue center and segment of the industry now.
It was a wild ride the first couple of years. I mean, we created it because we knew there was opportunity, and we heard that from operators and readers and people across the industry. What we didn't know, however, was that what a hot segment was in 2018, 2019 would become what it is post-COVID, right? So it was exploding. It was exciting, and then of course everything stopped. Yet, ironically, coming out of COVID and coming out of the pandemic, I think it accelerated Food on Demand at a faster rate than we would have been able to do so even prior to that, when things were on fire in the space. Because frankly, if a group made it through, you have embraced and adopted off-premises at some level. If you were on the fence before 2020, coming out of it, that's no longer the case. So now it's a matter of trying to figure out how to optimize that, how to improve those operations, and that's kind of where we fit in.
Well, it is such a big segment that while it may have started out about some articles or newsletters and things like that, it's turned into a full-blown conference and marketplace coming up at the Bellagio in May. So maybe you can sort of give us the highlights of what we should expect this year at Food on Demand 2025.
Yes. So Food on Demand this year will be May 5, 6, and 7 at the Bellagio. Like we have done the last couple of years, we're kicking off the event at 1 p.m. on the 5th. That said, immediately preceding Food on Demand, we will again be working with Easy Cater for the Catering Growth Forum. So there'll be a half-day catering-focused content event that will be done prior to the start of Food on Demand, which is another segment of our space that is currently experiencing incredible growth. And this year's event will be 3 days. So we'll do a half day on the 5th, a full day on the 6th, and then another half day on the 7th. And we are right in the thick of final planning, as I mentioned to you prior to jumping on the call here. This is the crazy time. We are. It's exciting. It's busy. It's hectic. It's all of
It
those.
must be very demanding.
Um, it can be.
Should I
It's
have said
demanding, but
undemanding? So you're not even laughing, you know?
it's well, no, well, that's because I'm in it, Rob, and it really is. It's one of those things that it's a hurry up and wait, right? We build it, we work it, and then we wait for things to come together, and then inevitably you'll pivot and adjust with, whatever curveballs are thrown at you. But it's the life we live in January through April, really.
But you know what I find interesting about is when you first got started in this, there were a number of different, very focused, siloed segments, and there were some conferences and things, and most, if not all of them, have really been discontinued. Yet this one has grown, and I think part of it is the key word of how do you actually define what food on demand is? Because it isn't necessarily about delivery and takeout; it's about catering. It's about how would you define that?
That's a great question because we've talked about that internally. And when we started Food on Demand, we had a tagline, and it was the intersection of food, technology, and mobility, right? Which also is a perhaps cliche, and I've seen other usages of that similar.
I like the word technology in there. That's good.
Agreed. And really, but that to your point, Rob, it's technology is the backbone of everything that we do, right? I mean, in this world, it is a technology driven space, and yes, we are focused on, and really to this day, we are still the only event focused specifically on that off premises side of the market, and that's kind of how I try to look at it. Is it's not just delivery, it's not just takeout, it's not just catering, it's not just drive through, it's all of those things, but perhaps even more importantly, it's all of the technology and the solutions and the services that go into making all of that really run, and again continue to optimize those operations for restaurants, which again has continued to change and evolve on nearly a monthly basis.
Absolutely. And they also have to be integrated with the rest of the operation. And I would point out that while people, were at the early days really talking about ghost kitchens and maybe it's now dark kitchens or whatever, they all are still out there. They're all actually components, of this particular conference because they all fit together. And you did say, the word that you used was offsite, I guess it was, right? But a lot of people are also using the words, if you talk away from home. IFMA is using away from home for the food manufacturers because they're also preparing their foods to be consumed away from home.
Yep.
Or at home, away from.
Yeah, it's again, I think we look at it through off premises. I know folks will say a takeaway or at home. It's really, and it's a different space now as well. I mean, when Food on Demand started, there was the delivery side of it, and then there was the in-house side. They were two separate worlds almost, and it's really evolved to a point where it's all connected, right? And I think that the technology that you refer to that really makes up the backbone of everything that we work with is really what drives that. I mean, it's that technology that operators are using, both inside the four walls, that also then integrates and can
externally because they also have partnerships, right? I mean, 100%. It's not just one ecosystem of you do it yourself. Some people do it themselves. Some people have partners, and then some people have a combination of both. They're really hybrid.
100%. Yeah, and we started
going to see change in that.
Well, no, and we did. It was at last year's Food on Demand conference. We had a panel called Build versus Buy. I believe that was the first of probably a dozen build versus buy sessions that I've seen over the last 12 to 18 months. And it really is, I think, symbolic of what the industry is kind of going through right now, and figuring out what's right for each group. And I've told folks this on conversations and calls that I've had for the last year, where coming out of the pandemic, there was the rush to off premises. There was the rush to online ordering and delivery and takeout and anything that could really make you survive during that point. And it has seemingly evolved. And I truly believe the last 12 to 18 months and moving forward, there's probably more opportunity now in this space, at least from an industry perspective, than there was, even when it was the hottest thing in the market coming out of the pandemic. Because
Absolutely. And I think people realize that there's that revenue opportunity because you have the opportunity to create a new day part or a new revenue center. And by the way, there's not only all the way to the home or to the business or wherever it is, but there's someplace in between, which is where the lockers and things come in, the midpoints and the office buildings and the stadiums and arenas. And so if we think about the diversity and the expansion of the marketplace, who should be attending? I mean, who does this appeal to? Who are the ones who are going to attend?
our focus for food on demand, and really our focus as a business, whether it's food on demand or FDC, and I know John and the other side of our business quite well, is trying to improve operations for our restaurant operators. And I feel like if we do that well, our sponsors are served well also. So when we build the conference, we're obviously working for and trying to attract and serve as many of those restaurant operators as we possibly can. Yet at the same time, most of the groups that we work with, and this is shown in the surveys that we do post conference, most of the groups that we work with and most of the groups that are exhibiting with us are there and working with other groups. They're integrating with the DoorDashes of the world, the Olos of the world, and
there's new players coming in there. Who would have thought, like Instacart and people like that you would have thought grocery, and all of a sudden they're doing this piece, and then you have people like 7-Eleven, who are doing also pick up on the way, not just what they make themselves.
100%, and that has been part of our ecosystem for years, albeit not necessarily the focus, because the restaurant side really has been our bread and butter. But all of that has really started to blend together. And you mentioned the ghost kitchens and the virtual restaurants. I mean, now look at what it used to be, right? Just a couple of years ago to what it is now, and you'll have a group like Wonder, right? That's very much focused on branching out and doing things different. And it's not what it was from a ghost kitchen or virtual restaurant perspective years ago. That said, it's not gone; it's just different. Right, and I think there's lessons to be learned from that for the attendees at our conference and really all the conferences.
So you really mentioned sort of the pre-conference workshop by caterees, and obviously there's a component of a marketplace where people are able to show their offerings and services. It's not all technology. Then you have conference sessions and keynotes. And you have networking. I mean, are these the major pieces, or are there some other components, that a person needs to know about?
Yes. So from a format perspective, it's dare I say traditional, right? So that we have 3 days of content and sessions that are planned and set up from a programming perspective. But yes, we kick off the event. Day one, that morning, we'll have the Catering Growth Forum that Easy Cater is working on. We then kick off at 1 o'clock, and we will have, I think, 3 or 4 hours of programming that afternoon with a reception that evening. The reception is in our exhibit hall, so everybody is welcome. That is where most of that networking, those connections happen. And then the next day is a full day of programming where we have general session in the morning, breakouts all afternoon. One of the things we're doing new this year is we're kicking off that morning session on day two, or the morning on day two, I should say, with operator roundtables, right? So the last several years, we've had groups reach out and say, hey, this was great. I learned a lot, but I'd really love to be able to talk with some other operators that might have a similar issue, or frankly, just talk with them kind of off the floor and hear kind of what they're doing to work through their catering programming or their marketing or whatever that might be. So one of the things we added this year is dedicated space during the breakfast on Tuesday morning for restaurant operators to connect with and network just with other restaurant operators and really give them a let's call it a semi-structured format to do that, where we'll have a couple of topics. I'll have a couple of our team members in there just to make sure that things stay on track. But really, it's a forum for our operators to connect with one another in a very comfortable, easy setting before we kick off a full day of programming that we have as well.
Well, it's interesting because You just talked about some of your own team members to help with the content and things that are there. That is one of the things that's a differentiation point for Food on Demand, being both a publisher and also a conference and an event organizer in this. You're actually providing content and information all year long, but also your editors and you as well, have expertise and knowledge that you're able to speak intelligently, on the stage and moderate those panels and help to pick the subjects that are there. It's an all year round thing for you. It's not just 3 days.
It's what we do as a company, whether it's Food on Demand, Franchise Times, RFDC. And again, our model is different as well. With the sessions that we host at the conference are created and built by our editorial team. They work on this, day in and day out all year. We're a digital media company in addition to the conference, right? So as they produce stories and articles and report on what's going on within the space, they will be able to say, this is really what I think we need to be focused on. This is what we're hearing from operators, not necessarily who bought XYZ session or a selection of panels that are purchased and sold,
Right.
which I have been to, and they can be good too. It's just the model that we have is a little bit different because we are first and foremost a media group, and
Right. So your
that's how we want
content
to represent.
first. Your content first,
Yeah.
but also, as you think about the different subjects. So let's just take the thing. People sometimes think, maybe I'll just go every other year or whatever. Now, I enjoy going every year. But there's a reason why, because every year the subject matter changes or the key focus areas change. So are you able to share with us a couple of the key things that may be the hot spots this year versus what might have been last year and in the past?
Yeah, and you're 100% right. And again, your analogy of the ghost kitchens earlier is a great example of that. If we would have covered that in 2022, it would have been much different by the end of 2022 on how that's represented for the following year. So this year, listen, I get asked a lot, what's the focus, and we're already niche, right? So we cover that off-premises world. So inherently that is already our focus. However, one of the things that we kind of decided to do this year, and we did it intentionally. If any of the viewers had attended any conference last year, you probably could have made a couple good games out of the amount of times you heard AI come up.
Oh, right? Man, I was sort of hoping you weren't going to say that.
Listen, it is. But ironically, it's something that we haven't really leaned into and covered that much. One of the things that we're doing this year, and I'm very excited about hosting them, is that our keynote speakers this year will be Adam Brotman and Andy Sack, who are with Forum 3. Adam is the original chief digital officer of Starbucks, who helped build their online ordering and payment and loyalty platform. Very smart guy. And Andy, who is his partner, is a guru in the tech building and investment world, and worked directly with the CEO of Microsoft for years. Well, they're coming out with a book. And what interested me when I was talking with them during our prep calls, it's focused on the impact of AI for business. And in that book, they interview the likes of Sam Altman and Bill Gates. And frankly, if I'm going to hear more about AI, I want to hear what those guys are saying about it, not necessarily what.
But they're relevant. See, so many conferences will use just AI speakers or tech speakers or whatever it is out there, but they don't come from the industry. In this case, people recognize Starbucks as a leader in technology and customer connection. And where does it go next when you're doing, voice AI, and actually communicating directly with the customer?
Yeah. And that's really one of the things that appealed to me the most when I was talking with Adam was his experience in the space. I think his comment to me on the call was, I'll know a lot of the people there, and a lot of them are already going to know me, right? And it's been a few years since he was specifically in the restaurant space, but I believe what they're doing and what they've done with this book will resonate well. And again, like I said, it's going to be interesting to hear about some of the folks that they did talk to do that. But that's just how we're kicking things off. We've got a panel called from tradition to tech, on how legacy brands are embracing digital for the modern guest. We've got a what I'm very
That's
excited
a big
about is
challenge.
an autonomous delivery panel, right? So when we started Food on Demand, year one, I attended and exhibited at RFDC. I think our signage at the time had a logo and a drone on there, because that's what we had when we just kind of kicked it off. And it was, that was the future, right? That's what was going to happen. And, fast forward 8 years since then, it's now coming to a point where you're starting to see some of that. So we've got Wing and Serve Robotics representing that, with Shake Shack talking about how they've implemented that, and some of the things that they see coming up.
And some started and got announced a few years ago, sort of went silent, or coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe before their time, right?
Yep. And that's just it. Is that I still believe we are early. But it's something that it's definitely going to be a factor. And so hearing from the players like Wing and Serve to see how they're approaching it, I think will be beneficial as well for our operators. And of course, we have the evergreen topics. We'll again have our third party deep dive, hearing directly from those third party delivery providers. We'll have a first party ordering discussion, which again is I think always a focus for our attendees.
They may be evergreen topics, but in fact, the things change every year on year, how those topics are approached. How many attendees do you expect to get?
So this year I'm planning for a little over 800 attendees. Last year's conference, we had a little over 800 attendees, 400 plus operators. We've been pretty consistent the last few years and just growing. John, our owner, our model is incremental growth, right? And our model is different in how we approach it, and so we want to make sure to grow at a pace that works. So we are looking at hopefully, listen, if we can pull in 2,000, wonderful. But I'm looking at
but it's more important what the conversations are and what people learn from each other, just as much as what they're learning from your sponsors, from your editors, from your speakers. It's just as much a getting together in person and sharing information with each other, the round tables being the example.
Right. And it really is a collection of very focused, like-minded individuals, right? In other words, when we started, the titles of the attendees have changed, right? So in 2019, I don't think you would have saw a single director of off-premises or VP of delivery and catering. That's a good
That's
portion.
Because it's its own business now, and that it has to do it. So look, May 5th through 7th at Bellagio.
Yes.
And a person can register by going online and seeking out Food on Demand.
You can, yep. Registration, can be done on the website. We are just over 2 weeks away from closing up our room block. That said, I'm not sure when this is going to air, so that may or may not be.
I've gotten a room already, so we're good. I'm not calling you at the last minute.
Fair enough. So yes, you can register on the Food on Demand website. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to any of us. We're also listed on there. Happy to help from a registration perspective, from any questions that you might have about participation or simply attending. We're hoping for another record event, and frankly, I think the content that we've put together this year is, I'm very biased, Rob. This is my baby. However, I do think it's going to be the best year we've had.
Well, it's very important. It does stand on its own, and it also represents a very important segment and opportunity for our industry. So, as usual, I will look forward to seeing you in Vegas and across the year in general. And I think it'll be a great conference. And again, it's Food on Demand. It is the 5th through the 7th at Bellagio, and I'm really pleased to have a friend and also a person I can meet with at these conferences in Jared Pfeifer, who is the publisher in Food on Demand and the organizer of the conference, has been there pretty much since its inception to where it is today.
Thank you. We are excited, and yes, I look forward to talking with you at the conference again. I might not have quite as much time as I do when I go to other folks' conferences, but it's always good to see you there and catch up in person. You've been going there almost as long as I have, so it's going to be fun.
Well, it's always good also to catch up with a lot of people in the industry, and you're right. It is a very specific focused conference, and the IFBTA and I always enjoy meeting different people from the same organizations that sometimes the IT people are in, but they have a different focus. So thank you for bringing Food on Demand to us, and we look forward to May 5th through 7th at Bellagio and joining you and the whole team at Food on Demand.
Wonderful. Can't wait to see you, Rob.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Tech Bites, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.